When we start recording.
We're all set.
Good evening. Welcome everyone to the Anne Arundel County Police Accountability March board meeting. My name is Jeanette Ortiz. I am the chair of the meeting of the board. And I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome all of those in attendance. This is the first business meeting for the board of 2023. The first 2 months of the year, board members went out into the community for what we're calling listening tours to allow members of the public to share feedback, concerns, any feelings, thoughts about police accountability in the county, in the state in general. And so this is our first meeting. And as folks may already know, in accordance with the law, the board is required to meet with the law enforcement agencies at least quarterly so that the agencies can provide updates on any complaints received and any other information that is relevant to the work of the board. And these meetings, these updates help us do our job in accordance with the law. So I'd like to go ahead and move towards the approval of the February listening tour meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? I see Sean's hand up. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, the meeting minutes are approved. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we will open up the meeting to public comment. Speakers will be allotted 2 minutes each and may not allocate their time to others. Please wrap up your comments when your time has expired. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate. Case-specific matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. It is not the board's general practice to engage in a question and answer session with speakers. Again, please note each speaker has 2 minutes. We do not have anyone that signed up in advance. Is there anyone from the public who would like to provide comment at this time? Please raise your hand. I'm not seeing, I see a hand raised. Let me see. Jen, so, okay, Jen, let me get my timer together. You will have 2 minutes to provide public comment, and feel free to begin whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jennifer Sell. I live in Severna Park. I have a few questions as we head into this meeting. First, I appreciate the work you all put into your annual report. I noticed that your report included a number of recommendations, and I was wondering what is the status of the implementation of these recommendations. I'm a little concerned these recommendations will be let to fall on the floor by the current administration, and I'm wondering if you or the administration can provide members of the public an update in the future on what is being done with these recommendations, other than filing them in a circular filing cabinet. I did see that you made one recommendation to amend the state law. Unfortunately, no legislation of this sort was introduced, and I'm not aware of this type of issue being pushed by the administration and their own state legislative priorities. I think this raises some questions of how much the administration cares for the recommendations made in the report, especially considering the PAB's former executive director clearly has the ear of the county executive given his new role. I urge the members of the PAB to consider once again the important role they play in police accountability, but to also acknowledge the confrontational environment you've been put into, where the administration does not seem to be listening and local law enforcement continue to do as they please. I'm also very alarmed by the March 16 article in the Capitol Gazette in which the administration, knowing that House Bill 670 had passed and was going into effect, still signed an agreement with the AACPD union that would make any complaints received before the ACC was established and trained to not be accountable to the PAB. This is an active act of the administration to further weaken the PAB and the authority given to the PAB by the state and county. I'm curious if the administration told you it had formed this agreement. If it had told you of the agreement, you could have taken actions to mitigate some of the damage by selecting ACC members even quicker than you did. Were you left in the dark by the very administration that handpicked you to be in your positions? This behavior is gross and is another symbol that this administration cares more about staying in the favor of the police than providing accountability to the very people that voted them in. You are, for better or worse, one of the bodies that can help make a difference. While getting updates from these law enforcement bodies tonight, I encourage you to actively listen. Don't take things for granted. Don't fall for the good cop routine. It is in the best interest of these individuals to make them think that you are friends and they are here to help you. What is really in the best interest of the police is for you to think they have everything under control and that your role is unnecessary.
If you could
But we
please
know
wrap
that
up.
that's not true. Please do your job in holding these organizations and the people within them accountable, for they've shown they will do everything in their power to avoid doing that themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sell, for your comments. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else, any member of the public who would like to provide public comment at this time? Just going to do that like teacher wait time that I've learned about. Sean knows what I'm talking about. Okay, I don't see anyone else from the public. All right, so next on our agenda, we have our quarterly updates by the law enforcement agencies. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to provide an overview to the public, to the agencies, to make sure we're all kind of on the same page as far as expectations from the PAB, what we expect the agencies to be reporting to us, and how we would like to collaborate with the agencies to ensure that we are fulfilling state and county law to the fullest extent possible. Jen, if you can pull up the slides, please. Thank you. You can go to the next slide. So each of the agencies received an email from Jen at least a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, requesting additional information when sharing complaints with the board. As board members, do not feel that we are getting all of the necessary information to fulfill our role as the Police Accountability Board for the county. It's kind of impossible to track trends and analyze anything with the very minimal data that we are currently receiving from the agencies. So staff and I, we did a little research. We wanted to see what other folks are doing. And so we thought it would be great to share with the agencies what some of your sister county police departments or counties are doing as it relates to reporting information to the public. So Baltimore County is a really great example. They have a police data dashboard that's been in place even before the new police reform law went into effect. And what's interesting about Baltimore County is that they're still under a collective bargaining agreement that was allowed under the new law because it was still in place when the new law went into effect. So they were allowed to kind of finish out that agreement. So they're still under LAOBR standards. And yet they're still reporting all kinds of amazing data. And when I saw this, I was like, wow, I would love for Arundel to be in this position to report such great and informative data to the community, to the public at large. And I know that the county police department has a dashboard that will be going live in the near future. And so we definitely look forward to seeing that. So Jen, if you can go to the next slide. So this is all Baltimore County information, their police department. They share information, use of force data and complaint data. So, and they have access for the public. So this isn't even just for the Police Accountability Board. This is available to the general public, anyone that accesses their website. And so they have the tabs there for anyone to see the information that they are sharing. If you go to the next slide. And then they have this information here that breaks down the complaints by, they break different demographics, gender, age, types of complaints, what's the allegation, what's been sustained, what's the disposition of the cases. So this is from January 1, 2017 through September 30, 2022. It looks like, they have a little bit lag in data, which is understandable, especially if things are under review or under investigation. And so they make this information readily available to the public. Again, this information was readily available to the public prior to the new police reform law going into effect. So I wanted to share this because I think it's really important, and based on feedback that we're hearing, that I've heard from my fellow board members and that we're hearing from the public, this is the type of information that we in Anne Arundel would like to see at some point in the very near future made available to the public. Jen, if you can go to the next slide. So we also have Calvert County Police Accountability Board. So this is a little bit different. This is the Police Accountability Board in Calvert County that is providing information on their cases that are, complaints that have been received. And they make this available again to the public. They provide certain data that the public can view. You can see the date, received, the complaint number, the agency that's responsible for investigating the complaint, the status, the disposition, if there is a disposition, disposition date, and any corrective action taken. So this is Calvert County that is doing this. They are receiving information from their agency or agencies. I don't know if they have multiple agencies to be able to provide this to their residents, to anyone on their website. It is, again, readily available to the public. Jen, if you can go to the next slide. So I just wanted to, and Ethan will be providing an overview of the county and state law, just as a refresher for the board members and for the public. Maybe, the agencies might want to stay for that as well, because Anne Arundel County law is very clear about complaints and how they're supposed to be filed and forwarded and shared. And if you see at the bottom there, number 6, complaints of police misconduct filed with a law enforcement agency shall be forwarded to the Police Accountability Board within 3 days after receipt by the law enforcement agency. There are no parameters. It says the complaints must be forwarded to the PAB. That's not happening. Like, we're not seeing the actual complaints, right? The agencies are choosing to share what they feel they should share. Personally, as an attorney and as a member of this board, I don't think that the information we're receiving is in compliance with the county law, because we're not receiving the entire complaints, and the information that we are receiving is very minimal and not very helpful. Jen, if you want to go to the next slide. So I just want to put this so folks can see. The board requested from agencies to provide this information to us. Thus far, we have not, we asked for this information before this meeting today. We did not receive all of this information from any agency. So that's obviously a concern. And hopefully you will address that when you give your presentations. And so I wanted to, share this, make sure everyone's on the same page. Everybody knows, all the agencies know that you've all been requested. We've requested that you all share the same information so that there's consistency and uniformity. And to be perfectly honest, like, there really shouldn't even be parameters around any of the information that you're sharing with us, because the law seems very clear to me that you're supposed to be forwarding the entire complaint to us. That's not happening. Jen, can you go to the next page? So this is what we're getting right now. And that looks nothing like the demographic data that Baltimore County has. It is less than the information that Calvert County is receiving. And they both have public facing portals that have a lot more information than this. And the PAB as a board can't even get that level of information from the agencies. So again, a concern, and I certainly look forward to working with the agencies to resolve this issue, because I think I can speak on behalf of the board in saying that it's a problem and it's an issue. Is there a next slide, Jen? Okay. So that was Anne Arundel County Police Department. This is what Annapolis is reporting to us, and the sheriff's office. So sheriff's is on top, Annapolis is in the middle, and Crofton and Anne Arundel Community College have indicated that they have not received any complaints in the last almost 9 months. So as you can see, that is very, the data sets, the information that's being shared is a lot less than what we are requesting. Is there another slide? Nope, we're good. Okay, thank you. You can exit out of the slide. So I just wanted to put that out there because this has been a concern for board members. It's been a discussion piece. We've definitely reached out to the agencies to attempt to get more information. And so I look forward to hearing from each of the agencies on the recent, on the status of complaints. And I would love for you each to address our concerns. So without further delay, let's start with Anne Arundel County Police Department, please. Thank you. Whoever is presenting, feel free. Are you muted? Is Anne Arundel?
Good evening. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. By way of introduction for everyone viewing, I am Captain Tim Schultz, and I'm the commander of our Professional Standards Division. It's my pleasure to speak to everyone on behalf of our Chief Amal Alwood. The chief has a scheduling conflict this evening. However, she sends her best wishes to everyone. I'd like to thank Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, Executive, and also Executive Director, Mr. Evelyn, and the PAB Chair, Mr. Ortiz, for the opportunity to participate in this evening's Police Accountability Board presentation. I'm here this evening with Deputy Chief Flemings to my right, and Mr. Morris, our Chief of Staff, and Sergeant Brandt from our Staff Inspections Unit. Joining us remotely is Miss Kathy Rogers from our Office of Law, and Mr. Bill Lowry, our Special Advisor to the Chief. Before moving into our primary presentation, I'd like to address one issue that we've presented on before. When we presented last November, we provided information on our dashboard that we hope to make public after the first of the year. We're making progress on that. We are delayed slightly in the release strictly because our Staff Inspections Unit, headed mostly by Sergeant Brandt, who's worked very hard on this project. They were working hard to make improvements based on feedback from our Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, several academics, and other experienced professionals. And the focus was to ensure that the data reflected a comprehensive narrative. We are proud to say that our public dashboard will be released tomorrow morning and available on our department website. So we hope that everybody has an opportunity tomorrow to tune into that on our website and take a look at our dashboard. Please know that the dashboard, it will be a living program, and that will continue to grow and evolve over time. I know our time is limited, so without further delay, please permit me to move on to our presentation. A lot's taken place in our department since we last met. Chief Alwood promoted several members of our executive command staff earlier this month. The promotions included the appointment of a new deputy chief. You may recall the last time we met, Katie Goodwin, she's our major, and she presented to you, I think, on one of our meetings in November. Chief Alwood appointed Major Goodwin to Deputy Chief Katie Roberts. Major Goodwin surprised everyone at our promotional ceremony, including her husband, and she decided to change her last name. So we're all trying to get used to her new rank and her last name. So if you see her, please congratulate her on both. Chief Alwood also promoted Captain Ryan Frazier. The chief appointed him to our major in charge of patrol operations. The chief also promoted the commander of our training division, John Mahaffey, to the rank of captain. He remains in our training division as he's in charge of training and education for the department. And the reason I'm highlighting these is these recent appointments and promotions solidify the commitment of the county executive and the chief to professionalize our senior leadership team. In furtherance of this commitment, Chief Alwood also hired our new community liaison. This is a very important position to our agency. The community liaison works in the Office of Professional Standards. Her name is Miss Kylie Benston. She's a Bowie resident. She was hired in December to fill this role. Ms. Benston has many assignments, but none more important than the victim advocate. As many of you know, the victim advocate position was identified under House Bill 670. Ms. Benston has an advocacy background with both juveniles and adults. She also has experience in mediation and crisis intervention. Since January, Ms. Benston has fielded questions and provided advocacy for our community members regarding incoming complaints. She's also helped to field calls and emails related to officer compliments. She's worked with our community members also on quality assurance callbacks and CIT referrals when they're needed. I'll be sharing her contact information with you in just a moment when we share our screen for the rest of this presentation. So in concert with the Police Accountability Board, the department is initiating measures such as these to improve matters of policing in Anne Arundel County, which we recognize as one of their primary goals stipulated in House Bill 670. Now I'd like to share our screen with you to show you a brief presentation and update on where we currently are.
So not sure if you are speaking, but we cannot hear
No, it's
you.
all right. I'm just waiting for
Okay.
Sarge to get
No
that up.
worries.
So, so as can everybody see that? Yes. All right. So click to the first slide before we start. So in this first slide, you'll see an image captured from the 2022 PAB annual report. That image should be familiar to you. That image depicts data of annual complaints reported to the PAB. That report showed 16 administrative cases that were opened regarding allegations of police misconduct involving interactions between a police officer and a member of the public. The report showed 7 cases that were closed through formal disposition and 9 cases were still active going into December of 2022. The next slide shows the same information from the year-end PAB report on the left side of the screen. Since the year-end report, our detectives have continued working on those open cases. Since December 1st, 2022, 8 of the 9 investigations that were active have now been closed through disposition. The dispositions of those cases were handled in accordance with agency policy, and those will not be subject to charging committee review. The updated breakdown of the previous 16 cases are shown on the right side of the slide. So as you can see, there were no changes in the exonerated category. 3 of the open cases were not sustained, bringing us to a total of 4. 2 of the open cases were sustained, bringing us to a total of 5. And 3 of the open cases were unfounded, bringing us to a total of 4. 1 of the cases remains under active investigation, and that was for an allegation of a policy violation. Therefore, for clarification, 15 of the 16 cases that were received and reported to the PAB are now closed and 1 remains active. We recently updated our complaint reception and investigation policy to meet the new laws and made efforts to ensure the language reflects reporting requirements and overall expectations. The complaint reception and investigation policies and staff review and will be posted soon on the department website. We've also updated reporting categories in our internal system to show relevant investigations that will be forwarded to the charging committee for review. If we receive a complaint that meets the standard of police misconduct, then it will be investigated by internal affairs. Therefore, we've built a classification system to identify complaints that require charging committee review. Those cases fall into a primary category identified under House Bill 670. In this case, police misconduct involving the public. We've identified subclassifications identified under House Bill 670, including constitutional, criminal, and policy allegations. Our new design was put in place to help capture incoming complaints under the definitions of the law. You'll see the primary classification and subclassifications on upcoming PAB reports and emails from us, as was highlighted earlier in your presentation. Since December 1st, 2022, Internal Affairs has taken in new cases regarding allegations of police misconduct involving interactions between a police officer and a member of the public. Any case received after December 1st, 2022 will be counted towards the 2023 reporting numbers for the purposes of the PAB annual report. On the right side of the screen, you'll see complaints we received between December 1st and February 27th, 2023. These received cases also would not be eligible for ACC review. There are 12 received cases, 7 have been closed with formal disposition, and 5 remain active. Moving over to the right side of the screen, you'll see cases we've received that are eligible for ACC review. We've received 3 complaints that remain under active investigation that will be subject to charging committee review. Each of those cases will be forwarded to the charging committee upon completion of the investigation. Each of these cases was received in March, so they are relatively new. Our daily email should be keeping everyone updated when we receive complaints that become subject to charging committee review between now and the next quarterly meeting. I realize that was a lot of information. We'd open the floor to any questions at this time.
Thank you so much for that information. Greatly appreciated. If you want to stop sharing your screen now, that way I can see everyone. And while you're doing that, if you would be so kind to share this presentation with Jen Rogers, and she can share it with the board, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. All right. Any board member questions? I see Kim's hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question, just a couple questions about this internal police policy. When it comes to self-investigation, I think one of the things that it would be good for the board to know is how is internal affairs received by the rest of the department, and what are some of the, for lack of a better word, challenges your department has if it is reviewing itself for its own misconduct?
I think I'd have to have you ask that question again. Are you asking what is the perception of internal affairs?
What is the perception of internal affairs within the department? And what, if any, challenges do you face, given that, as you've described in your presentation, many of the complaints were basically self-determined?
I mean, that would be a difficult question to answer, but the entire rank and file, knowing what their perception of internal affairs is, because I don't necessarily know. I mean, that'd be a very difficult question for me to answer.
I can give you a little bit better, or some idea. I think it's not like what you see on TV, you know, that hate of internal affairs and that animosity and so forth that you see on TV. But it is known that the members of internal affairs do investigations on our own people. We hold our people accountable. We don't have people lined up to go into internal affairs, but we do have very good investigators, and due to the, I guess, the environment that is known throughout the agency, that we hold our people accountable and we will do investigations, there isn't as much of that, what's the word I'm looking for, stigma, I guess. Our internal affairs people, they attend functions and associate with people throughout the department on and off duty, and you know, there isn't that animosity that you see again, that show that you see on TV. So I think, but again, to answer the question, we do our own investigations, we hold our people accountable. Most of the cases, especially the sustained cases, are ones that we bring forth against our own people. So I think we do a very good job of that. We don't shy away from that at all. We know our responsibility, and we handle it.
Mr. Ortiz, if I could just add to that, they're professionals, they're trained detectives. They have a responsibility, they're guided by the evidence that the investigation reveals. They base their investigations on the evidence, and they make a determination based on that evidence as to whether or not there's a policy violation or a criminal law violation or a constitutional violation. I also think it's important to note that internal affairs, unlike any other unit or any other division within the police department, they fall directly under the chief's office, and the commander of internal affairs reports directly to the chief of police in concert with our representative from the office of law.
Again, if I could expand slightly upon that. Just from a training background, the people that are in internal affairs, I'll give you just a background on where some of them come from. My background is I have 25 years on the department. I was a commander of the training academy, so my background is training. I was also in special operations for 12 years. I did 5 years as a patrol commander, and also time as in narcotics. So that's mine. My commanders that all work in the unit have a similar background, either at training or investigations or in CID. My sergeant was a homicide detective for many, many years. And then all of my detectives either come from a criminal investigative division background, an extensive background in that, or from a training background. So they are evaluating performance and misconduct standards with a minimum of 10 to 15, sometimes 20 years of training or an investigative background from either an academy background or criminal investigative division background. That's where their expertise comes from. And the command level experience in the unit is also then doing that, and we're presenting cases to command who may have between 20, 30, or 40 years of experience evaluating officer performance standards and conduct.
Jeanette, may I follow up just with a quick comment?
Yeah.
Thank you for that, by the way. And I definitely don't want the question to be misunderstood. Having met many people within your department, you're definitely a very professional department. And so that's not really the question or concern. I think the analogy I would make is, as an attorney myself, if I were working at a law firm and a client made a complaint against my work as a lawyer, and then my law firm handled the complaint, like that would be considered a primary conflict of interest that wouldn't be allowed. So we, right, as attorneys, no matter where we're barred, we have to be investigated by a completely independent organization. And so I guess what I'm trying to figure out is if there are no identified challenges, what are their protections? And you don't have to answer it right now, but I would like to work with the board to follow up on the challenges or the protections that are in place to make sure that the idea of a department investigating itself is something that the public can feel very comfortable with. But thank you for your answer.
Could I,
Thanks, Kim. That's a good idea. I think if we can get a written response, that would be really helpful.
Ms. Ortiz, if I could just weigh in for a second. I'm Kathy Rogers and I'm from the Office of Law. And just to further that answer a little bit, I am assigned, although I work for the Office of Law, I am assigned as an advisor to the police department. And so I work intimately with the Internal Affairs Unit, and every case that's being investigated, I'm also involved in. So when you're asking for a neutral party, a person who's not a member of the police department, that's an added layer that the department does have, that as a member of the Office of Law, I am involved in the process of each investigation.
Thank you, Kathy, for sharing that. Okay, honestly, I think I may get the order wrong, but we're going to go with the board member questions. I think I saw Barney next. You're still muted, Barney. Oh, we can't hear you. Huh. Try to unmute and mute and unmute again. Maybe your sound, your connection. No, still can't hear you. You may, you can type if you want, type it in the chat and then we can ask for you. Sorry, or you can log off and log back on. It might just be a connection issue. Okay, Sarah.
All right, do I work? Awesome. Okay, so my question is a little bit more about the allegations, and I plan on asking this to each jurisdiction, so I will be repetitive tonight, and I apologize. On your screen that you presented, I believe it was the red slide, when you talked about the allegations, you called one attentiveness to duty. Another jurisdiction a couple of months ago called one courthouse incident. And I believe you talked about modifying subfields or subcategories. And so my question is, why are we doing this? The community wants transparency. And quite honestly, I'm a member of the board. I'm also a member of the ACC. I participated in enough training. I've been through all the training. I've sat with other ACCs for 40 hours. I've sat through all the PAB training. I live in the county. I'm a member of the county. I too have been a police officer. I too have been an internal affairs investigator. It feels like you're hiding something. The county feels like you're hiding something. The citizens feel like you're hiding something. At this point, I feel like you're hiding something. Why won't you give us the allegation that's being presented to you? You don't have to give us the names. You don't have to give us confidential classified information. We're not asking for names. We're not asking for date of births. We're not asking for officers' names, but the other jurisdictions are getting the information. We've spoken to other PABs. We've spoken to other jurisdictions. They are getting the information. So the question is, why won't you provide it?
And Ms. Kivett, maybe I can answer that at least a little bit. And we have, and I think maybe Ethan will chime in too, because we did run the way the department intended to report. We ran that by Mr. Hunt to make sure that he agreed that the department was in compliance with the law. And one of the main things that I think the department was looking at when they made the decision about the information that would go on the front end to the PAB was that part of the county law says that what the PAB is to do is on a quarterly basis, the board shall review outcomes of the matters. So I think the thought process was that on the end, everything will come to the PAB after the investigation is complete, the ACC has made their determinations, and then the PAB, as per county law, will review the outcomes of the investigations. And I think that was the thought process of the department. And Ethan, if you want to chime in on that.
Sure. So real quick, I can speak to that. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So both county law and the state law say that one of the primary responsibilities of the Police Accountability Board is to quarterly review the outcomes of matters considered by the Administrative Charging Committee. So because our charging committee was just seated and just went through training at the end of January, no matters have been considered by the charging committee yet. So we don't have that back end to look at of cases that have been through final disposition. However, the county council did amend the local law that says complaints and are supposed to come to the board within 3 days.
That's what I'm talking about, Ethan. The complaints are about the complaints come to the board. We're not really getting the complaints. We're getting the version that you choose to share. And it feels, even if you're not to the public, it feels like you're hiding something. It lacks transparency. It lacks police reform. The entire concept feels like you're hiding something.
And I just want to add, if I can jump in here. So the public has an option. They can file the complaint through the PAB website and it comes to us and then we send it to you within 3 days. Or they can do it through the individual agencies. Like, I don't think you want the board telling the public, please don't file it through the agency. File it through the board because the agencies refuse to be transparent. We see everything when someone files a complaint through the PAB website. So it makes no sense from any legal perspective, especially with the language in the county law, that you're now concerned that we see those complaints that people choose to file through your agency. We see everything when they choose to file it through the PAB. So it
feels like you're hiding
problem.
something. Call Howard
Yeah.
County, call Baltimore County, call Montgomery County, call,
Calvert
they're all
County.
getting it. It
Yeah,
feels insincere.
It's a problem. And it's a problem. I'll let other people weigh in, but we see everything. We see the officer's name. We see all of it when it comes through the PAB. So we can literally just suggest to the public to forego your agency and your website and your reporting. But we're not doing that because we're supposed to be collaborating. We're supposed to be working together to implement this law. As Sarah says, it does not feel like police reform. I'll leave it at that. I saw Sean's hand up.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Madam President, and welcome everyone on this call. And I appreciate the report that was shared. My comments really, Sarah really spoke for me as well, but I also had an additional question or a reminder to us, your dashboard that's going to come live. Can you remind us what documentation, what information is going to be within that dashboard? Is it going to be similar information that is required to come to the PAB? Or what exactly? Can you remind us what information will be on that dashboard?
So on that, to refresh everyone's memory, that will be our response to resistance and aggression dashboard. It's a very comprehensive dashboard, and tomorrow morning, I believe, are we doing a press release or a press conference? Press release. So there'll be a press release in the morning. And after that, I can't tell you exactly what time the dashboard will be up and live, but I know that we've been working on it for a very, very long time. And it is a very comprehensive dashboard.
Thank you. And one last question. And I remember in your report, you talked about the new additions that will be highlighted as we move forward in your reporting. Will your move forward reporting represent the required information that was presented tonight by Madam Ortiz?
So the new information is what we talked about with Ethan Hunt and our Office of Law Representative. So the information that you highlighted on what your requested expectations were, no, it was not. It was what our conversation was with Mr. Hunt and our look at the law, the House Bill 670, and what the definitions were of police misconduct and what those definitions were.
Thank you.
Okay, sounds like maybe I need to be in a meeting with the agencies and the office of law, because other counties don't seem to have this misinterpretation of the law. I see Danny's hand up.
Hi, thank you. I just had a question. So kind of in the same vein, but a different vein here. Based on the reviews, I know you talked about the officers having 15 to 20 years experience, some up to 40. There were 16 complaints, I believe, and 5 of them are unsubstantiated. So from the 11 that were substantiated complaints, were there any trends that you guys have issued recommendations for changes to the training or the onboarding of new police officers or retraining of current officers based on those 11 complaints? What kind of things have you learned through that process?
I think if I were to talk about that, I'd have to probably go back and look at those complaints. It's going to be difficult to say, but I will say this: every complaint that we bring through, all the way through discipline, that we reach some level of a formalized finding on. Training is something that you will see in the statewide disciplinary matrix, and if this was in place before the statewide disciplinary matrix. Training and education is at the forefront of Chief Alwood's mind and every chief's mind, because discipline is not just a matter of a suspension or someone's transfer or anything like that. Discipline is trying to instill what is the best possible solution to resolve and reform someone's conduct. And so in this case, getting if the matter is to be resolved with getting that person back to work, what is the best way to bring that person back into the rank and file and put them back to work? And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at an educational component in just about everything that we do.
Just to kind of clarify, and I do appreciate that. I was thinking more like from a high reliability organization type protocol where you have zero harm. Like how do we learn from the experiences that have not resulted in positive outcomes and implement that into a systematic way to train our new police officers to prevent future occurrences of the same problem? And so that's something maybe to think about, to think through for the future. How do we continue to be better and not just implement changes on the people that have issues, but actually implement a change to our system that prevents future errors?
So if we identify those issues, or if we identify a trend like you're talking about, and those have been identified over long-term, like you said, what the PAB is going to be working on, and we would be looking for those future recommendations from you over your annual reporting and on those kinds of things. But we will institute training bulletins within the department, lineup training. It's something we can institute right away. And also that's the job of the person seated right next to me. If they identify trends in staff inspections, that's what falls under my unit every day. And staff inspections, they do that through a host of different initiatives throughout the department on a daily, weekly, monthly, and annual basis. And we're also, because we're CALIA certified, that is something that, because we're accredited, we go through an annual and then also a 4-year certification process that we could speak for hours and hours on end about why we have that gold star certification. But that is one of the things that we do, and we could spend weeks talking about that.
But it sounds like there's a good program there, and I would just recommend going forward that we have some conversation about the changes that have been recommended internally. If we don't necessarily see the subjects, but it'd be really helpful to know, for the community to know what we're doing to make things better. This is my only recommendation. Thank you guys so much for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Danny. I see Barney's hand up.
Mr. Ortiz, could I just comment briefly as a follow-up? Please keep in mind, we're dealing with human performance, and the idea of applying a perfect metric and expecting a perfect outcome when we're dealing with human performance. So anybody that's a parent knows that you've got 1, 2, 3 children. They all respond differently. So we spend a great deal of time and resources and effort in both training and educating. And there's a distinct difference. We train to shoot, we train how to engage, disengage, but we educate the mind. So we spend a great deal of time in that. But we have to take into consideration that we're dealing with human performance, and to apply a perfect metric and expect a perfect outcome in every situation involving law enforcement is unrealistic. And I think we just need to keep that in mind.
And I
Thank you
appreciate
for
that. But just to follow up, just again, you know, working in healthcare, I realize too that people are human and we often have problems that happen, but we still have people's lives in our hands. So I just wanted to, I get where you're going with that and I understand, but as a nurse, you give the wrong med, you kill somebody, we still have to improve day after day. So thank you.
Absolutely. And to further answer your question on those lines, the captain hit it. We do we update training bulletins, roll call training, but we also update, depending on the circumstances. There are times when we update our incoming training for recruits coming in, as well as our yearly in-service training. So that is done based on outcome cases.
Thank you for that. I do want to be clear. I don't think anybody here is seeking perfection. That would be unreasonable, and none of us up here are unreasonable. So I want to be very clear about that. Barney, I saw your hand up. We still can't hear you. I'm sorry. Type your question or email it. We'll ask it for you. We definitely want to hear from you. Kim, is your hand still up from previously? Or?
No, I just had a follow up to the response that board member Kivett got. And I do want to echo the sentiments that board member Kivett made. I think she makes a very good point, an important point, and one that is really hampering, we feel it's hampering our ability to do what the legislation is intended to do. Just generally, since we're having kind of a talk about this next stage that we're moving into, I understand the concept or the strategy that we're only going to do what the law allows. I just want to caution that that does not really speak the way I think you want to be perceived. And this isn't for one department, this is for all the departments. I don't think the public wants to hear back, we're only going to do it if you make us do it. And we're only going to do things that the law makes us do. That is one, not an awesome strategy. That's actually how we got here. So to the extent that this is an uncomfortable process, that just doesn't seem to be a good place to be. But in an ethical environment, what my sentiment is, we're here for a reason. We're here because there have been some missteps, and that's okay, right? Because to your point, no one is perfect. No department is perfect. The idea, though, that there cannot be a discussion about it, this idea that there cannot be transparency, that there cannot be collaboration or accountability, and that the only thing that the departments as a whole in this county are willing to do are things that they're made to do, does not speak to an ethical environment. And what we're trying to do, our very best, is be a liaison for ethical environment and ethical practice. In an ethical environment, the law is our floor, not our ceiling. It is the least that someone is supposed to do. It is not the most. And so what we are asking of all of you is that we would like to put together a relationship that shows your constituents, the same constituents who voted this law into effect, that shows the people that you protect and serve, that you too want an ethical environment, not a dictated environment. And because it speaks to our principles and our values coming from a very different place.
Thanks, Kim. Kenny, I see your hand up.
Thank you all for being so engaged in making sure that we can have clarity as to how we can be better and do better. I guess what I would say, not only to Anne Arundel County, but to all of the agencies, what is it then that you need from us, the PAB board, to be more clear and precise in exactly what we want? Because it may be a disconnect that you're thinking you're meeting our expectation when clearly we're missing the mark, and don't want to put it all on you, nor do I want it to be all on us, but that we remember what our end game or goal is. And that's just to have the community be sure that we are giving our best due diligence in all areas. And if we're not communicating what our expectation is, how can we be more clear so that you will know exactly what we are expecting or looking for? I don't know if anybody wants to address that. But that's a question that I have for you.
Nobody wants to tackle that? Well, I'll leave with this last few questions. Why is Calvert County not only providing their PAB members more data than any of our agencies are providing to us, but also to the public, right? We're not even asking you to create a dashboard with this information. This is to the PAB. So why is Baltimore County still under a collective bargaining agreement? Why are they providing so much more information? Why do our colleagues, our counterparts in the other counties, why are they getting more information? It seems that Arundel is one of the only, if not the only jurisdictions that is interpreting the law to be very narrow and as far as the information shared. So, I'll leave that more as a rhetorical question. I don't think I'm gonna receive a satisfactory answer this evening, but I would ask you to really think about that and think about the comments of all board members. I think we've been very patient and have been willing to collaborate. And like I said, I certainly look forward to setting up meetings with Office of Law and each of the agencies, because I view the law very differently, and clearly so does practically every other jurisdiction in the state, so that we can get to a place where we are implementing the state law and the county law with fidelity and doing what we're supposed to be doing and meeting the requirements of the law, the needs of the community, and even going further, as Kim stated, right? We shouldn't see it as the ceiling, it's the floor. So I would just ask each of the agencies, I know we have others presenting, so I don't want to belabor this, to really think about our concerns, because they are legitimate concerns and we're not going anywhere, right? You have me for more than 2 years. You have several of us for more than 2 years. You have others for more than a year. We feel very strongly that we need to do better and that we should be doing better and that we should be collaborating. So whatever we need to do to get to that point, we'll do it. And we want to do it collaboratively with you, with the community. We know this isn't fun. We know, it hasn't been easy to implement the new law. We know change is hard, but we want to work together to be successful. We want to be the leader. Arundel's the leader in so many things. We want to be a leader on this, and I think you want to be a leader on this. So I'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Anne Arundel County Police Department. Next, we have Annapolis Police Department.
Madam Chair, I see that Barney is back.
Oh, is that a new hand up, Barney? I'm sorry.
It is. Is my phone working?
Yay!
Yeah.
It's working.
I apologize to all you. I may have missed some of the issues that I have, but I do have one question for Anne Arundel at this point. I noticed that one of your slides, you had cases that are non-eligible for ACC review. Those cases are still eligible for the PAB review. We as a PAB, and it's probably been mentioned before, need to assess policy and policing. And in order to assess policy, we need to understand what's happening from the beginning of the cases until the end, as well as what's happened in the end. But unless we can see the beginning, how the case is assigned, the details of the case, to include those that are not eligible for ACC review, we're not going to be able to assess practice policing matters as the PAB is required to do. So that's a comment, and we'll go forward to your next agency today. Thanks.
Thanks, Barney. All right, we'll move on to Annapolis Police Department. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. I think it's Rhonda McCoy who will be presenting.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Rhonda McCoy, the Professional Standards Manager for the Annapolis Police Department. Chief Jackson sends his regrets that he wasn't able to attend this meeting this evening. He had a previous scheduled engagement. It's important to him to hear from the PAB and listen to your comments. I am not going to, we went with the other department a little longer. I don't have a slide, just a reporting, but I did want to start off by telling you guys what has happened since the last time we met. So I want to say that the Annapolis Police Department is endeavoring, to be extremely innovative. And we do want to work, with you all on these, on this important work. So one of the things that we have done, I'm pleased to finally announce that our advocate is being hired. Her first day is Thursday. It was important for us. It took us a little while to search for an advocate, someone who we felt was right for the job. Ms. Kayla Ziegler is has a degree in social work. Currently taking her to social work, getting her social work license. She should have it by the time she comes on board. And some of her duties and responsibilities, like Anne Arundel County, we are endeavoring to set up a dashboard / page, accountability page, with information on it similar to what Baltimore County and other jurisdictions have reported. Ms. Ziegler, one of her responsibilities will be to kind of oversee, that page, be a liaison to you all, as well as to the public and with, with taking complaints. So I'm happy when she comes on board to introduce her to you guys, and and she can answer to your needs on a regular basis. Another thing that we have done, which to take a different approach, is we hear you. We understand, what people are saying about law enforcement agencies and our ability to police ourselves. We do believe that we do an excellent job here at the Annapolis Police Department, but we are working and we are committed, to working to see that this system works. So in that vein, we applied for a substantial grant last year, which was the PAC grant with the states, which was a state grant that allowed us to ask for things that were police accountability related. So one of the things that we did do was hire, and our second is coming on board, 2 civilian investigators for internal affairs. One, Ms. Cooper has been working since November. We've been getting very positive feedback, which, we do outcome. I want you all to know that one of the things we did, write it in our grant is we have been doing outcomes with our complainants, and, seeing how they receive having the civilian investigator on board. The second investigator will be coming on board very shortly, within a week or two. We got training for our officers. One thing that we thought that was missing in the Accountability Act itself was to address officer trauma. And that officers, have PTSD and some other things that, can cause them to maybe commit a misconduct. So we hired a company, Instinctional Trauma Response. They came in, they did 8-hour training with most of our officers, and then with our peer support team, we did a 3-hour training or 3-day training with them on trauma response. So I was extremely pleased. I had officers stop me in the hall and say, Ms. Rhonda, yes, they just finished in-service training classes, and they told me that the 2 classes that they really enjoyed was the ITR, that Instinctional Trauma Response. And what we did here in Annapolis was the same training that you guys got for bias training. The same individuals. I hope you all, love that training. We went out and got that same training for our officers. So those individuals trained our officers for biasness. So we want you all to know that, we are a partner in this. and that we are endeavoring to do everything that we can do to see that the system succeeds. And when we can think outside the box, we do. Getting on to our complaints, we have 8 complaints. I don't know if Jen is able to bring up our screen. We have 8 complaints that have gone or that are going to be going to the over to the ACC. What I want you all to see is that I added a category in there based on your feedback from the last time and information that you wanted. Right where it says policy violation. What that will do, and I wish I was more technically sound, but I'm not. You would click on there, you see the little box there, but you would click on it's a drop-down box. And then it has our rules in it of, you know, what the rule violation was. And I just want to read from you one of the rules so you know where we're going. M1 section 1, members of the department shall be civil when appropriate and shall refrain from abusive language in the course of duty. So that is kind of each time you get a complaint, you'll do that drop down box, you'll see the rules. We are going to be sending our policies are going to be online. You'll have M1, you'll have all of that. So we just added that in, and I'm asking you all to please be patient with me. This is a work in progress because I'm adding it all in myself. I'm trying to put that grant in to get me a policy writer as well. But as we're going along, we are listening to you, and you know, we thought that this would satisfy you know, some of the, you know, your need for increased information by stating stating what the rule is. And we put that category in there. Now our allegation category will change to probably meet more in line with what the county has. It'll have like misconduct, it'll have, you know, use of force, it will have just, you know, use of force, misconduct, you know, four other categories, civil rights violation, etc. But then the C line will list what the alleged policy violation is. I want to talk about, you know, why, and I know that you guys had asked a number of questions, and we do, because I see it in the course of my work, where an allegation will come in either way, right? One way or the other. I've had some come in as a simple violation, and we wind up charging a false statement or something else, and vice versa. You know, so that is why we're trying to stand up that website. So when the cases are fully adjudicated, you guys will get it, but you know, you'll see it from start to finish, and then you know, you can do a trend analysis from there. I just really truly don't believe that, you know, you want the people to see exactly what happened, right? You know, and I think that probably, you know, reporting early and, you know, giving, you know, you guys like, you know, I think it's important that we, you know, we stick to what the alleged policy violation. I'm kind of thinking now that, you know, I'll add another subset category to say final, final allegation to it, or final policy violation when the case is adjudicated. But we are trying to, and we are endeavoring to work with you. We don't want you all to feel like we're not working with you. You know, Chief Jackson is very adamant that we are doing all, or tasking all that we can to work along with you to make sure that the system works, because we don't want it to fail. We don't want any more work than what we have, and we want to keep good officers, you know, here at the Annapolis Police Department. And of course, our overall goal is to hold people accountable when they don't do things correctly. You can't stay here if you do certain things. And, you know, that is the message, that's been the message, you know, from Chief Jackson from the onset. I did want to address, you know, some questions that you guys did ask the Anne Arundel County Police Department, and that is that I talk with our city council, and what I told them is that we have a three-pronged way of doing things here. We train, we monitor, and we adjust. This is what we do, okay? We train our people, then we monitor them to see if they are compliant with our policies and procedures, because a lot of people think that, you know, hey, it's just people, you know, breaking the policy. It may be that the policy is in flaw, which I've seen here in Annapolis, and then we go back and we make adjustments. You know, either it's to the policy, or either we adjust training. We're add, or, you know, we detract from it, but we do want you all to know that that's what we do. One of the other things that we have done is we have under that grant is we stood up a body-worn camera review team, and our body-worn camera review team will be conducting audits of different things, 3 things in particular. They'll look at arrest. They will look at use of force, and they will look at car stops to begin. But they're a small unit right now, and but we're trying to grow it. But we do want you all to realize that we are tasking everything to this, and we don't take it for granted. We don't want you to, you know, to think that, you know, we're over here. I am saddened. I want you all to know that I am saddened at the comments made from one of the citizens prior to us starting. We don't want to hear that. We want to hear that the people trust us, and they trust us to do the right thing. And we don't want to, you know, people thinking that I or my colleagues are trying to sell you a bag of marbles. We're not trying to do that. We want this system to work. And I'll entertain any questions that you have for me.
Thank you so much, Ms. McCoy. We really appreciate your presentation and your comments. Thank you. All right, I saw Kenny's hand up first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The question would be, how difficult would it be for whatever rubric you're using just to add the PAB as soon as you receive a complaint to have it forwarded to us simultaneously as it's generated to whatever entity that it's going to, that right on the onset, whatever you get, we get. Is that possible?
Well, I'm going to, and I know there's a whole bunch of lawyers here, so I'm going to go with the lawyer and what our lawyers told us. What we were told by our legal team is that first and foremost, we need an MOU. The general conception is just because the county enacted that law, that Annapolis or Crofton or the sheriff or have to fall under certain parameters of it. And what our legal team is telling us is that anything that was came over with the state law, that was written in the state law, yes, we have to follow it. But anything written by the county is only I guess the word is beholden to the county police department. What we need is, and what we would need to have is an MOU. I can tell you that right now, we would not, I think that the system that we have here about putting the policy out, the policy violation, what rule it was, and that it was a misconduct and going forward would satisfy, what you need. But I don't have a problem with updating it when we get it. I don't have a problem with sharing that screen as we did with Mr. Evelyn and Ms. Rogers. I don't have any problem sharing that screen with you so you can see it in real time when we update it.
I think that the problem that I'm having is that I think you're trying to not give us a bunch of garbage or, vet out information that may not be necessary or whatever. And what we want, or what I would like, is give it to me raw and let me decide what I want to do with it, or what is relevant or not relevant. And don't give me the clean process. Just give it to me dirty as you get it, and let us do what we have to do with it. Your thought?
Well, sometimes, and I understand what you're saying, and sometimes we get, we had someone call up and just say that our officer was ugly. And I know that you all don't think that those things happen, but those things happen. And, this is a system, we do not want to clog the system up, and I do not want to send you anything that is not a complaint. And so what I tell people is, and the same as I'm telling you, if it's not a complaint, I am not going to forward it. I am not going to forward you something to say that our officers was ugly. Being ugly does not violate a policy here.
And the challenge then comes for us if a citizen were to approach us and say, hey, I put in a complaint or whatever, and it was never addressed or whatever. And then we're responding saying, well, I knew nothing of that, or I'll look into it or whatever. And again, I appreciate you trying not to inundate us with a lot of unnecessary complaints or paperwork or whatever. But the law says that's what we're supposed to see. And that's all we're asking for. It's not that we don't feel, or I don't feel, that you're moving forward with integrity or whatever. It's just that the law says that we're supposed to see it, not just the mundane things or the little things, but all things. And all is inclusive of all of it. And we need to see that so that we can do what we've been tasked to do with integrity as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny. I saw Sarah's hand up.
Sorry, it took me a second to remember how to unmute. Ms. McCoy, I'm sure you heard my question from the first part, and I'm pretty sure I heard your answer, but I wanted to go over it one more time because I'm concerned about the type of information that we're getting. And I heard you just hint to an MOU. And I understand that an MOU might be needed. And so now I'm asking you directly, is your agency willing to engage in an MOU with us so that we can get the information that the citizens want? Because again, I think that it feels, I know it's not, but it feels insincere, and it feels like there's a lack of transparency. And if the only thing in the way is an MOU, that is paperwork that our attorneys and our counsels can hammer out if we're working collaboratively.
I think that Chief Jackson would be interested in an MOU. I can go back, take, your comments, back with him, and we can meet offline if you'd like and discuss it.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I would love to meet offline. Thank you. I saw Kim's hand up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. McCoy. It was a very good presentation, and it's very impressive to see the work that you're doing to deal with officers, because that's part of it, right? Is making sure our officers are okay. So I think it's wonderful that you all are endeavoring into this trauma-informed environment for your officers. So bravo for that. And we look forward to hearing more about that. I did want to give a little bit of feedback on a couple of things you said. Like you mentioned that, you didn't want to forward a complaint that said an officer was ugly. Keep in mind, right? We are the bridge. We're not coming out against you from a particular side. So if you were dealing with things like that, that helps us understand where you're coming from. As Kenneth, Mr. Moore said, I think give it to us and let us do what we do. As Jeanette said, we are all reasonable people. So once we have a better idea of what the kind of things that you have to put up with, it helps us understand your responses, because to Sarah's point right now, the responses seem disproportionately closed and obfuscated by things that don't seem to speak to the spirit or the desire of the community. So I would just suggest that you think about that. And when it comes to attorneys, I will say this, sometimes attorneys have to manage clients and sometimes clients have to manage their attorneys. And you've got to be very clear on what it is and the kind of relationship that you want to have. If you leave everything into the hands of your attorney, that may not work out the way you want it to. So I'm just going to say that. I do have another question though, which is, you mentioned 2 civilian members, which is, again, I want to commend your department for that approach. I do want to know though, like, one, how are they hired? To whom do they answer for their paycheck and their review and what have you? And how do you protect them from influence? Like I've been on many boards and meetings and, you'll have more quote unquote seasoned people. Oh, no, that's not how we do it. Oh, no, that's fine. Don't worry about that. And then all of a sudden the very essence of their position gets overridden by comparison. For instance, right, in a jury pool for a criminal trial, jurors are instructed not to speak to each other the entire time until deliberations happen, to help. I mean, it's not a perfect system either, but it is done with the intent of providing, right, some self-agency among each juror, so that when they do go to the deliberation stage, they have not already been influenced or tainted by another juror. So with that in mind, I'm just curious to know, how do you protect these civilian members of your internal affairs department so that they are not in a position where they feel influenced or unduly or duly influenced, or even, okay, like if you say so, how are you dealing with that? But more to the point is, who hired them and to whom do they answer?
So they answer to me. I am the professional standards manager, also a civilian here with the Annapolis Police Department. And one of the things that I want to tell you is that, the Annapolis City did not have the money in its budget for these positions. So I had to go out and seek a grant, for it. And I like transparency, and I want you all, to know that, we don't do things just to do them, just to put it on paper. So one of the things, or one of the parameters of the grant is that I will be sending out surveys for the advocate and for the investigator. And those surveys go to who? PAB, ACC, community. You will tell me, will weigh in to see what their performance is. ACC, PAB, and the community. And I will report that to the grant when we get the surveys back.
Thank you. I see Barney's hand up.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jeanette, just one question real quick. I assume we're going to follow up on this concerning an MOU, and specifically what we are allowed as the PAB to obtain under the county as well as state legislature. Because as Sarah has said, as Ken has said, it's so important that it's only a memorandum of understanding, which I'm not sure we need at this point. Then let's get that to all the agencies, because we need to see their portals of complaints, necessarily just the verbiage that we get in the reports every report. We actually need to get into the portal so we can evaluate what's humble opinion on my. Thanks.
Thanks, Barney.
I did
right.
want to, I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Ms.
No,
Ortiz,
go right ahead.
I did
No.
want to, to reiterate that the information that you all, no names, no officers, names, I think that, you know, that and the allegation violation, the policy violated, is one of the, you know, key things that, you know, we want to stress. That's our give, you know, to, and I can't wait for you to see M1. We are in a massive policy rewrite here. Our policies were so old. You know, I think some of them were written when Nixon was president, but we are endeavoring to update our policies. One of the things that, you know, our advocate will be sharing with you each time we update a policy, new policies that we have, they'll be telling you that, hey, you know, we got a new, you know, we got a new policy, and telling you what the policy is about. But you know, I know that you all want narrative. And I know that there's a lot of lawyers here. And one of the things that I try not to do is be presumptive. And one of the things that we talked about was, you know, people come and they make a complaint with you simply because they want to. That's their choice. They want to make the complaint with you. People come over to the police department to, you know, to make a complaint. You know, we looked at, you know, a number of things, and it would be presumptive for me to say that they want me to share that narrative with you. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to be presumptive to say that they would, just because we have a board.
All right, thank you so much. Oh, Sarah, you have a question?
So I don't want to be, I don't want to disagree with you, but I think that's where we're going to disagree a little bit. I think the law, so I think we need the MOU, but I think the law says that you have to share the complaint with us in 3 days. And that's what we are, that's where we're splitting hairs. And that is the language that the attorneys are going to have to sort out for us. But the other agencies are getting the complaint, the full complaint. And we're the only ones not getting it, the actual complaint on the table. And so if that's us getting the MOU, that's what I'm interested in working with for you, because I think that it's not, you're not assuming that they want us to have it. I think the law says we're entitled to it within 3 days. Now, if we need an MOU, then I actually am interested in pursuing that avenue.
Thanks, Sarah. All right, Ms. McCoy, thank you so much for being here this evening. We really appreciate your presentation, and really excited to hear about all the things happening at the Annapolis Police Department and the various ways that you're continuing to train your officers and bringing on new staff. So we look forward to seeing you in a few months. Thank you so much. Maybe sooner. We want to definitely chat further about a potential MOU. All right, thank you so much. Have a good evening. All right, moving on to the Sheriff's Office. I know we're a little behind schedule here, so our apologies, but I do think it has been a really important and much needed conversation. So hopefully others feel the same as well. All right, so from the Sheriff's Office, you can go ahead and present. Thank you so much.
Hi, good evening. My name is James Williams. I'm the Chief Deputy here for the Sheriff's Office. And I will say that Sheriff Sesker is not available tonight. Obviously, he must be at the same meeting that all the other chiefs are at because he had a prior engagement. But just some of the things that we've looked at. Sheriff Sesker did an evaluation of the agency and the needs of the agency when he took over back in December. And one of the things that we realized that we don't have is a sufficient internal affairs unit. Corporal Gross next to me here is our internal affairs. So one of the things that he is looking at, and he's trying to, we've asked for additional command staff from the county. We've put it in our budget this year and we're hoping to get it, but you know, right now it's kind of up in the air. But this command staff that he's looking at will actually be a commander that we can put in charge of internal affairs. They'll have the rank of a captain, which for us is a bureau chief. So therefore, we can have some kind of structure to our unit. And we're also looking to be a proactive unit with the addition of an inspectional services division in there. And what we hope to accomplish out of that is, these can go out and they can actually follow up on interactions with the public that our deputies have had. So instead of waiting for a complaint to come in, we're going to actually go out and try to solicit information from the people that we've had contact with. So we're hoping that, that we can, if nothing else, cut down on the complaints that are coming in. Now, you have our information, and I'm sure that, it's not going to be complete to the extent that you would like it. But I will just say, this is a growing process for us. And some of the county police mentioned that training came up under that. And I think training really goes for us who are involved in this process also, because we are learning as we go along things that you as a board are asking for that obviously we haven't presented at this time. So hopefully as this process goes along, we can work out some of these issues that we're having. I'm going to keep this real brief because you did say we were short on time. So I'm going to turn it over to Corporal Gross, and he's going to present our cases for this rating period.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I believe you have the database that I sent over a few days ago that encompasses our cases. I'm going to present to you. We have 7 new cases since our last meeting in December. I know there's not a lot of information on there that you wanted, but I'm going to try to improvise on the fly, so just bear with me. The first case is under 2022-09, and that is, I think I listed it as an external complaint involving anonymous citizen. That is a, to break it down a little bit more, that's a traffic complaint involving an anonymous citizen who called in saying a deputy was texting while driving. And that case, for all intents and purposes, it's ready for the ACC. It's just a matter of time. Many of these cases I'm presenting and the cases beforehand will be ready for the ACC. Just a matter of setting up the protocol to do that. Second case, 2022-10 is that is a courtesy issue, and that case is ready for the ACC as well. 2022-11 is I think this is a procedure / intimidation. That was basically a team trying to do an attempt pickup for an arrest warrant, and the complainant just believed that we didn't have the basis to knock on our door without going into a lot of nitty-gritty detail. But that too is ready for the ACC. 2023-01 is also listed as an intimidation case, and that is a deputy attempted to serve a levy on a house, and the complainant didn't like the fact that he was getting levied. And that's it's a civil issue. We could go here till midnight trying to explain it. I'm not exactly clear on execution of levies as well, but it's a very complicated issue, and it is really incumbent upon the homeowners when they get a levy to work with the creditors and as well as a deputy trying to serve these levies. So they can be a little touchy issues. In this particular case, the complainant did not like the fact that the deputy called for backup when the complainant blocked the deputy in from leaving. So the second case, 2023-02, is a late notice where a complainant complained on a deputy for serving a late notice on a failure to pay rent. That case is also ready for the ACC. 2023-03, another procedure / intimidation, how I would noted it. And that is when a team tried to knock on a door, and the complainant, when they knocked on this door, it was an Airbnb unbeknownst to the deputies, and the complainant who was there renting the house and took offense to the number of deputies who showed up. I spoke to him, educated him on what the sheriff's office did, and he was very thankful and happy with my explanation. And in his words, he considered the matter closed. However, because it came as a complaint, we are going to share it with the ACC. In the last case, 2023-05, I noted as a procedure case, and this is just recently where It was a complaint on deputies where the complainant felt that deputies didn't have a valid warrant. Just recently during the investigation, the deputies are relatively exonerated. If I say relatively, are exonerated on it. It was a civilian who we believe may have violated procedure. But that case is still early in the investigation. And I believe I just covered the several investigations we have gotten since the last meeting. I'm open for questions.
Thank you so much to you both, and thank you for sharing that information. We'll go to questions now. I see Sarah's hand up.
So first, thank you. That was well done. You gave us kind of what we're looking for. If you would give that on the front end when the complaints come in, that is what we are looking for. It doesn't have the officer's name. It doesn't have the complainant's name, but it gives a description of what happened. That is what we are looking for. That for a starter is enough. It's not this generic conduct unbecoming, and then we don't have a clue what conduct unbecoming is, because really that could be a variety of things. This is what we're looking for. So Corporal Gross, thank you. If you could give that to us on the front end, that is what that makes us feel like you're not hiding anything. That feels like you are sincere with us, and it feels like we are looking through a window and you are allowing us to see in. I thank you again. I have no questions for you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. I see Kim's hand up.
I too want to second what Sarah said. Thank you for that, because that definitely, first off, thanks for acknowledging the fact that this is a growing process and that we're all learning. That level of just communication means quite a bit. And it sets intentions in a very positive place for, what we have to do. This is not easy stuff that we have to do. And this is very serious work that we've been asked to do. So we appreciate you doing this, and not only doing it, but doing it on the fly. I want to make sure that I get on the record for giving credit where credit's due as well, because I believe in that as well. I did have a follow-up question about your IA plan. So thank you for being so transparent about where you are with your internal affairs department. Is the plan for a one-man IA department? I just wanted, or was it there was going to be one person who was going to set up a bigger IA department, or do you think one person would handle it? I just wanted to get an understanding.
We want to start with our command staff to make sure that we get that in place before we ever start trying to add to it. That way we have supervision. And then once we have our command staff in place, which we're asking for a captain and a lieutenant, then we can start adding other investigators to the office.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And I don't want to steal the colonel's thunder, but one other thing we're also implementing is we are getting software. It kind of mirrors what the county police is doing, but for the sheriff's office, it is a huge undertaking. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time for me to learn it and know it and be able to present the inner workings of it. So, which I believe that you may or may not be able to see. I'm not too sure on it, but we're in the infancy stages of it, but it's going to be a huge undertaking. But at some point we will be on the 2023 level of digital presentations and things like that, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you so much. And I want to echo my colleagues have already stated. That was super helpful, providing that context to the complaints. As Sarah and Kim have stated, if we can get that on the front end, I mean, literally that's all we're asking for. And we think it will be extremely helpful in us being to really understand, the types of complaints that you are receiving, and, allow us to better do our job and fulfill our responsibilities in analyzing trends and things of that nature. So thank you. And again, for doing it on the fly, as Kim stated, greatly appreciated. I do not see any other board member questions. So thank you so much for being here this evening. Have a good evening. All right, moving on. Next, we have the Crofton Police Department. We have Acting Chief Jett here. Welcome. This is your first business meeting here before us. Hopefully.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Horrified you. Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Okay. Yeah, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'll probably give you a quick review of since our last meeting, or since I said our previous chief's last meeting. He has been relieved of his duties, and we were told by our board that we're going in a different direction. So that is currently where my position is falling. I'm acting right now, and we're trying to currently hire, but we're having, of course, difficulty like all the other police agencies. And with us being as small as we are, currently it's myself and a corporal that I have. So I think that's why you're also realizing that we're not generating a lot of complaints. We're not generating a lot of, activity for you guys to review. I think for us, like I said, since we are so small at this particular point in time, like I said, we're just not generating that much paperwork. But when I was first put in this position, I immediately reached out to Jen and Jansen and had them over for a meeting because I knew how important this was. And I mean, like I said, we're trying to stay on top of it for our benefit. I'm also jumping a lot of hurdles here and a lot of roadblocks because when the previous chief left, there wasn't kind of a roadmap to follow. There wasn't a lot of passwords for things. There wasn't a lot of documentation, so forth and so on. So I'm slowly placing everything back in position to rebuild here. That's what we're really planning on doing. And transparency is a big part of it to us, or at least to me, as far as running this agency at this particular point in time. I want to be upfront with everybody. And as I spoke, if we can supply it, I'll give it to you. Unfortunately, like I said, there hasn't been any complaints coming through to generate anything here that I could even present to you or show you what we do. Currently, I have an Excel spreadsheet. Unfortunately, I don't have it to present to you tonight because I didn't know that was part of this. I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm learning on the fly. But once we get up and running in that particular department, I will gladly share anything that we can share to you guys. I don't have an issue with that. I like the idea that was printed about the MOU. I think that would be great. Although with us being so small, like I said, us generating a lot of stuff for you to see is probably not going to be the case. But currently that's where we are. Like I said, I like the idea of that. I'm basically sitting here gathering all the information. I'm absorbing as much as possible, being this is my first meeting and knowing where things need to go moving forward. So I'm open to any questions, but like I said, right now, I don't have anything to give you, unfortunately. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to say I wish I did because I don't want any complaints coming in from us, but unfortunately it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen, but that's where we sit at this particular point in time. But I said, I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you so much. And I was going to say, like, that's a good thing. So not necessarily, unfortunately. I did want to ask before I open it up to other board members, the former Chief Fox had mentioned that in order to file a complaint with your police department, folks had to come in person. And so one, is that still the case? And if it is, I know you're a very small police department, and I'm sure your software and website capabilities, are limited. So we understand that. Is it possible, I would just ask that you consider linking our county police accountability complaint page on your website for publics to have that, ability to do it that way, just because, as I'm sure you can imagine, right, there are a variety of reasons why someone may not want to come in and make a complaint or call in a complaint. They might feel more comfortable doing it electronically. So understanding that you don't have the same sort of website staffing capabilities and all that as the county does, if you are able to link our site on your website.
Actually, I love that idea. And I love the dashboard ideas. Now, whether we can get to that level, you know what I'm saying, with what we have to work with here. But what we did do is I think it's next month, we're actually putting all your information in our e-advocate. It's a newsletter we release to the community every month. That's going to have all your information and your contact stuff in there as far as if they need to file complaints. I mean, what you guys do, I mean, it breaks it all down. So we're going to be putting that in our e-advocate next month. So that was one of our ways of getting the word out versus, trying to dance around software ideas for how small we are. So
sure, absolutely. No, understood. That is wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And I see Kenny's hand up.
I just wanted to applaud the acting Chief Jett for stepping up in a very difficult time. Appreciated your presence at our town hall on last month. and being present and showing and expressing a willingness to work with us side by side. And I know that there may be difficult days ahead, but we can get through it together. And thank you for being willing to walk with us alongside, and I think things will be well. But thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kenny. Yes, thank you. My apologies for not mentioning that, but Acting Chief Jet was at our last public forum listening to our stuff at the Crofton Library. And so, yes, we very much appreciated you taking the time to be there that evening. And again, thank you. Again, we look forward to continued collaboration and working together, to move forward to implement the law and help build trust within the community. However we can be of assistance and be partners, you know how to reach us. So thank you again for being here this evening.
Thank you.
All right, last and certainly not least, Anne Arundel County Community College, Lieutenant Donato here this evening. Welcome.
Can you hear me? Okay. I had to get the link for this meeting last minute, and apparently I clicked on something that was incorrect, and I was here from the beginning, but I didn't see myself, so I went back out and clicked back, and I think I had clicked in incorrectly, but I was here from the beginning of the presentation.
I saw you.
Okay, so you can verify that.
We can vouch for you. Yeah.
Okay, so the gentleman from Crofton kind of stole my thunder. He apparently has the smallest agency. We have 29 members total for public safety. We're a hybrid agency. We have some fully armed police officers. We have special police officers that are not fully armed. And then obviously we have some admin staff. With that in mind, from the implementation of these programs, we have not received a complaint yet on any member of our agency. When and if we do, we'll follow the rules. There's nothing to hide. We promote service here. A lot of the procedures and policies that have changed, we have put into our updated policies. We promote the training of that and implementation. We have a power DMS type system where officers have to review the policies and then sign off and verify that they've reviewed them. And I mean, I don't really know how to phrase it any better, but working at a college, our first job pretty much is service. So I think that from the ground up, this agency promotes good service to the students and staff and visitors alike. But if there is a hiccup, we jump on it, we take care of it. So I don't believe there'll be any problems. And if there are, we'll ratchet things up and tighten things up so everybody's satisfied. That's what it's about now. It's about everybody in the community working together to provide the best service for everybody that comes to the campus.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any questions for Lieutenant Donato this evening? Oh, you got off lucky. I don't see a hand up. Okay.
So there are no reports,
Danny.
there are no complaints? I just want to clarify, there's no complaints?
No complaints since July 1st, none at all.
Okay.
And my comment is only just that, I think we've heard from the sheriff's office what would be a really good way to present complaints, and just kind of encouragement for obviously the college plus Crofton to just try to start from that point and work forward. Just a recommendation.
I could forward any dialogue to the chief, who is currently in Italy suffering on a vacation. But when
For him.
For him, exactly. But when he gets back, I can promote those ideas. I like the idea of a nice graphic. I'm not a tech guy, but I'm sure someone at the college obviously would know how to do that. It just seems to make it easier.
Simple. Simple with
we can definitely do simple. Yep, we can definitely do simple.
Thanks, Danny. Anyone else? I thought I saw another hand. No. All right. Well, thank you, and thank you for your patience.
My pleasure.
This evening, I mean, hopefully you found the discussion informative. So
I did. I just sitting and listening, you learn a lot about not only the technology side of it and the presentation side of it, but you get a perspective of what the people we serve want, and it's fair. Every cop that I know signed up to help people out at their heart. Unfortunately, some people go in a different direction over their careers, but the people that we have here, and I would say 99% of the police officers that I know and have worked with want to serve. And what better way than to serve the customer than to know exactly what they want in their order. So that's what these are about to me. These meetings are very good for me, and I promote it. I push it on to the next level. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very
for your
much.
work.
Thank you
Have a
very
good evening.
much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, so moving right along. Next, we have, we had asked Mr. Ethan Hunt with the County Office of Law to just provide another overview of the county and state law regarding police accountability and the Police Accountability Board. We thought it would be useful, given that we're 9 months in, a nice refresher for board members, members of the public. As I mentioned, I think some of our agencies should probably, listen in on this overview, as I think it will be very helpful for folks to understand, our perspective. So I will leave it to Ethan. Thank you.
Okay, let me see. Okay. So just real quick, can everyone see? Why is that not working?
We can see that.
So sorry, I'm trying to screen share and it is not.
We see your Police Accountability Board Review PowerPoint.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
it. Okay. Okay, so just in reviewing the state law and the county law requirements, I'm not going to go through every item because some of the items in the state law and the county law are about membership and membership requirements. Obviously, we don't need to review those because we already have a fully seated accountability board and a charging committee. But in looking at the public safety article, Title 301, and the following section, so each county has a police accountability board, and there are really 4 main responsibilities that accountability boards are tasked with. The first of these is providing policy advice through the meetings with heads of law enforcement agencies. So that's the quarterly meetings that we do, every 3 months. A quarterly review of disciplinary matters considered by the administrative charging committee, the outcomes of disciplinary matters, and then the annual report as well. And one of those requirements, or another requirement rather, is working with the heads of the law enforcement agencies and county governments in general to improve both matters of policing and police accountability in the county. And that's a very broad scope of things. I know we've talked a lot about complaints and the complaint process and the discipline process tonight, but that it's not just limited to those matters when it comes to how to increase trust and accountability. The third item that the accountability board is in charge of is appointing civilian members to the administrative charging committee, as well as to trial boards. And the fourth is receiving complaints of police misconduct that are filed by members of the public. And then again, in Anne Arundel County, we have Anne Arundel County Police, Annapolis Police, Sheriff's Office, Crofton, and the Community College. So let me skip ahead here. And these are, again, the membership requirements that I'm going to skip past these. And actually, I have a better graphic that I'll use after that. So again, here are the responsibilities laid out in a little more detail. So when it comes to the complaints, the board can receive them and has to forward them to the appropriate law enforcement agency within 3 days. There are laid out in state law as well as county law what needs to be included in those complaints. And then the appointments, 2 members to the charging committee, 2 civilians, as well as 1 civilian member who's not a member of a charging committee to a trial board. And then on the quarterly review and reporting. So again, as I mentioned, quarterly review the outcomes of matters considered by the charging committee, and then annually by December 31st, submit a report to the governing body, which in our case is the county executive and the county council, a report that identifies trends in the disciplinary process of officers and makes recommendations to improve police accountability in the county. I will note we sent our report not only to the county executive and the county council, but I believe to the mayor as well, and some state legislators, the committees that consider police-related legislation. And then, so here's just a brief refresher on what the Administrative Charging Committee does. So after a law enforcement agency completes their investigation of a complaint alleging police misconduct, the completed investigation goes to the Administrative Charging Committee that then reviews the findings of the law enforcement agency. And statutorily, there are things that the charging committee can request from the investigating agency, additional information, additional action, issuance of subpoenas if necessary. They're entitled to review body camera footage. They can also call a police officer to appear with a representative for the charging committee. Once the charging committee has reviewed the investigatory file, make a determination about whether or not an officer is to be administratively charged. If the determination is made to charge the officer, the committee not only makes the recommendation on the charge, but there is a disciplinary matrix established by the State Police Training and Standards Commission. The charging committee applies that matrix and recommends discipline based on the administrative charge. If the officer is not charged, then the charging committee can make a determination that the allegations are unfounded or the officer is exonerated, and they submit their written findings and report to the head of the law enforcement agency who employs the officer who's under investigation. In their report, if the officer is not charged, the charging committee can identify if there was a failure in supervision or training at some point that led to the officer's actions. That can be identified as well. Once the recommendation from the charging committee goes to the head of the law enforcement agency, if the law enforcement agency head, if the recommendation is to charge an officer, the law enforcement agency head can look at the charging committee's recommendation, look at the level of discipline recommended according to the disciplinary matrix. The head of the law enforcement agency can offer that level of discipline to the police officer, or they can offer a higher level of discipline to the police officer. They cannot deviate below what the charging committee recommends. And the officer has the option to accept that recommendation and accept that discipline, at which point the matter is concluded, or the officer can appeal to the trial board, which is the third body in the process. The trial board, each law enforcement agency is required to establish one by state law. Smaller law enforcement agencies can use the trial board process of a larger law enforcement agency by mutual agreement. And so this was just a timeline of how our process went here in Anne Arundel County. And then, so that's that review. Real quickly, I'll just go and then to the county law. And these are the duties, again, that are laid out in state law. They're in county law as well, regarding complaints and reporting. One other thing I will highlight. So this is from the Police Training and Standards Commission. This is a flow chart of how the complaint process works. And so it's helpful if you're a visual person to see just the process a complaint goes through from the accountability board or from the law enforcement agency through investigation, through the charging committee, whether or not an officer is charged, then through a trial board. And it has all the legal citations there as well, which is helpful. And the other thing I will point to, and this is getting down in the weeds a little bit, but it is sort of the third level of regulation governing this whole process, are the regulations in Title 12, Subtitle 4, Chapter 9 of the Code of Maryland Regulations. It's what's called COMAR. And part of House Bill 670 was a provision that required the Maryland Police Training and Standards Commission to adopt regulations to implement the new law. So this is a lot of operational detail, especially when it comes to the charging committee in terms of how things are supposed to proceed, internal time deadlines, how files are transferred from a law enforcement agency to the charging committee. And I will scroll down here because one thing that is in the law it's in the law and it's in Comar. Sorry, let me see if I can find it. So prior to the Police Accountability Act back in, I think it was 2016, the Justice Reinvestment Act, which was another sweeping piece of police legislation, included a provision in law that said certain nonviolent complaints of misconduct are eligible for mediation. And that provision is read in conjunction with the new Police Accountability Act. So there are certain complaints that may be eligible for mediation, and that's explained in these Comar regulations. And complaints that are handled through mediation, it has to be by the agreement of both the complainant and the law enforcement agency. They are supposed to be tracked and reported to the Police Accountability Board as well. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions folks may have. I know it's a lot at once.
Great, thank you so much, Ethan. If you could stop sharing your screen. No worries. That way I can see hands if there are any hands up. Thanks for providing that overview. That was helpful. We just thought, it'd be good to get a refresher for us and the public on the various responsibilities. Are there any questions for Ethan at this time? I see Barney's hand up.
There we go. The mute's off now. Okay. I'm a little slow with my marker here. Even, the MOU, the responsibilities with or without an MOU, do we have a feel for where we may be headed with that?
You're talking about with the agencies sharing complaints.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm happy to work on an MOU, and I can talk individually with you more offline if you'd like. But one of the challenges in the new law that I think everyone has run into everywhere is that every county is required to set up the board and the process. But as part of that, there are other law enforcement agencies that aren't under the authority of Anne Arundel County, if that makes sense, right? The city of Annapolis is an independent municipality, independent political corporation that has their own rules and procedures. And our ability to legislate how another political entity runs their own municipal departments, not just the police department, but any department is limited. So that's something we will have to work out.
Thank you, Barney, for that question. Ethan, as a follow-up to that, so that is true for the city of Annapolis, but not the other agencies, correct?
So the sheriff's office is a
different
office, right? In the judiciary department.
Right. They're not executive.
Anne Arundel Community College, I'd have to dig a little bit, but I don't believe they're an instrumentality of Anne Arundel County government.
Got it. So I think it would be helpful for us if the holdup, if you will, with some of our agencies is the lack of real authority by the county. If it makes sense for us to enter an MOU, definitely, I think there's agreement here that we would like to explore that. But that's not true for Anne Arundel County Police Department, right? They're clearly under the purview of the county executive in the county. So, that will be additional conversations. And so I don't know if we would go through you or Kathy But certainly I know I would like to meet with the agencies and legal. So whether it's like our legal and their legal, just to kind of have a better idea of where they're coming from. Seems like our smaller agencies appear to be a little bit more amenable, even without an MOU. But I guess whatever it is that we need to do as a board, as a county, to help facilitate the correct reporting of information, I know I want to do that. So we can certainly talk offline, about what our options can be so that we can help move forward in that direction as soon as possible. So thank you. And thank you for your presentation. Thank you for staying late. We know you have a day job too, so we appreciate it. Does anybody else have any questions for Ethan? All right, thank you, Ethan. You have a good evening. Next on the agenda, we have the executive director's report. I believe Jensen had to step away for a moment, so Jen will be sharing updates. Welcome,
Excellent.
Jen.
Thank you. So just 2 quick updates. Ethan has been, I guess, promoted and will be stepping out of his role in early May, late May. And Thomas Mitchell has been assigned to the PAB as our counsel. He's on the call as an attendee, but I will share his information with everybody. And then maybe more excitingly, Moya Panda has been announced as the new executive director to the Police Accountability Board, pending confirmation by the county council. So she will start April 13th. And then immediately the next week goes in for ACC training. So we are very excited to have her join us. And that's all I
Thanks so
have.
much, Jen. Appreciate that. And welcome, Thomas. We certainly look forward to working with you moving forward. And also welcome to Ms. Moya Panda. I had the pleasure of sitting in on those interviews, and so I'm really excited. I'm excited to have her on, and I don't think anybody's going to be more excited than Jansen so that he can not be doing 2 jobs at the same time. So very exciting things happening. All right, great. Next, under new business. So we've talked about, going out into the community, and we're doing our listening tour, and we haven't had the level of engagement as we would have hoped thus far. But, the second meeting was definitely more, we had more folks than the first one. And so we will continue doing the listening tours. The next one will be in April and May. Those will be the last 2, the way we said we would do it, so that we're consistent and uniform across the county. But I know we've discussed, other ways that we can engage with the community. And so one of the things we're looking at, I've talked to Jen and Jansen about, is just identifying community meetings, right? Or community groups that already have standing meetings, whether they're monthly, quarterly, bi-monthly, whatever that may be, and reaching out to them. So, and kind of asking if, we could just be there to observe, or if we can have 5 or 10 minutes to speak and more importantly, hear from them. So that's something that we're working on. So I would just ask each of you if there are particular community organizations that you think we should be reaching out to, because I think some are obvious to us, right? But there may be smaller organizations or less known organizations, but each of us in our individual capacities and professional, social, whatever, may be aware of them. Please email that information to me and Jen. And so that way we can start compiling, a list of the organizations that we'd like to engage with. And it doesn't have to be, all board members, right? It could just be a couple of us. And actually, so that we don't have any potential Open Meetings Act issues, we don't want a majority of us. So even if it was 2 or 3 of us at meetings and we can decide, how to split that up. My goal is to try to be at all of them if I can. That's, just wanted to bring that to your attention, that that's something that we definitely like moving forward, kind of like phase 2 of community engagement, to ensure that people are feeling heard and we're meeting them where they are as well, and sort of like their already existing meetings and spaces. Any questions, comments, concerns? I see Sean's hand up.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I actually love the idea. I also wanted to see, I know we all are connected in various ways in our communities, but I'm wondering, just in case, we miss that board or that meeting that people say, oh, you didn't reach out to me. Is there a way that maybe we can post something that says, if you are interested in having members of the PAB join your community meeting, just so it takes away they didn't come ask me, it allows equal access. We still may not be able to get there, or may be able to send one of us, or however, but I'm just wondering if we could place that ask as well out to the community, because I'm sure we all are not aware of all of the community groups that are meeting around the county.
It's a really great point. Thank you for bringing that up. So yeah, I mean, I'll talk to Jen to see if there's something, whether we can write a message, on our web page and include her email or the PAB email address for folks to reach out. So yes, anyone in the community, your organization, your community group, club, whatever it may be, if you are interested in having us come and meet with your community members, we are happy to do so, right? It might take us a little bit of time. And so as we work through different organizations, but yes, absolutely, let us know, reach out. The email is on the Anne Arundel County Police Accountability Board webpage. Contact information is there, but yeah, I'm sure we can put something on the website.
Yeah, we can add it as a spotlight on the homepage, and we can also put it under Get Involved.
Yeah.
Anything we want there, so very easily.
Great, thank you. That's a good idea, Sean. Thank you, and thanks, Jen. Jen's techie, unlike me, so unlike some of us, so she will find it. I see Barney's hand up.
Yeah, Jeanette, one question that came up, and it had to do with one of the presenters putting the PAB access on their website or their future website or whatever. Is there anything to preclude us from having all the law enforcement agencies have that as an option on their websites? Can we explore that?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't think there's anything precluding us from having them do that. I think some of them do have some information. I don't know if it's a link to our page or just to theirs, but we can start, if that's something we're interested in doing, we can certainly explore that. So it's a matter of whether they're willing to do it. Thank you. All right, any other questions? All right, so my takeaways are that we meaning Jen, we'll put something on the spotlight and the Get Involved sections of the website to provide information for individuals who may be interested in having us come speak to them, sharing a little bit about what we do, or just listening to their members. And then we can move forward, once we get like a list of folks and dates and things of that nature. And then your takeaway is please send me and Jen any community organizations that you're aware of that you think would be interested, and then we can reach out. Or if you already know when they meet, that's helpful too. If they have a website or a Facebook page, that would be helpful. Sounds good? Great. And then, so a couple of announcements. The next meeting of the PAB will be part of our listening tour. It will be held in person on Monday, April 24th in the Eastern District at the Pasadena Mountain Road Library. Also at 6:30 p.m. Information can be found on our website. So again, that will be in person. And the last one will be in May, and that will be Northern District. The location is to be determined, so keep an eye out for that. Last but not least, I would like to wish a very happy birthday to our very own Dr. Sean Ashworth. Happy birthday. So happy to have you on this board, and appreciative that you took time out of your birthday to be here with us this evening. So I will not sing.
Thank you. Don't sing, but thank you.
Happy birthday. And I'm going to bring some baked goods when I see y'all in April. So behave, everyone. No cookies. And Danny, you're not going to get any cookies. I don't know, maybe cupcakes or something. We'll see. But yeah, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Continued peace, happiness, and blessings. Okay. All right. If there is no other business, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.